AITA for kicking my parents out of my life after a cruel betrayal. I never imagined I would cut my own parents out of my life, but I'll never forget the moment I discovered what they'd done. In that instant, the foundation of my entire life cracked, and I felt something break irreparably between us. My heart pounded so hard I could barely hear anything else. My hands trembled as I held the proof of their betrayal. I realized that nothing would ever be the same again. It all started on an ordinary afternoon. I was up in the attic sorting through boxes of old family stuff when I spotted a weathered cardboard box tucked behind an old suitcase, almost as if someone had tried to hide it. Curious, I pulled it out into the light. Inside were piles of old papers from my childhood, report cards, art projects, the usual. Near the bottom of the stack, I saw an envelope with a logo that made my stomach drop. It had the letterhead of Columbia University, the college I had dreamed of attending in high school. My name was printed on it, and it was still sealed. I felt a mix of excitement and dread. Why was this here? Back in senior year, I had applied to Columbia. I waited for an acceptance that never came, and eventually resigned myself to going to a local state college. My parents had comforted me when I was devastated about the rejection. So what was this envelope doing here, untouched and hidden away? My hands shook as I tore it open, expecting to see a rejection. Instead, the first line made my heart stop. Congratulations. We are pleased to offer you admission. Columbia had accepted me, with a full scholarship, and I never knew. I sat there on the attic floor as the room spun around me. This was real, dated 5 years ago. My parents had known about it. They had hidden my acceptance letter and lied to me for years. A flood of memories from that spring in my senior year came rushing back. Me checking the mailbox every day. The crushing disappointment when nothing from Columbia arrived. Crying in my mother's arms because I thought I wasn't good enough. And all the while, they knew. They had watched me fall apart over a lie they told. Shock quickly turned into white-hot anger. I felt tears of rage and betrayal welling up. I clutched the letter to my chest, then read it over and over, as if to confirm it wouldn't disappear. Each line I read felt like another punch to the gut. My dream had been within reach, and my own parents took it away from me. I needed answers. I needed to know why. I stumbled out of the attic and down to the living room, my heart hammering in my chest. My parents weren't home yet. Dad was still at work and Mom had gone out shopping. With shaking hands, I laid the Columbia letter on the dining table, right in the center, and I paced the house like a caged tiger, waiting for them. Before confronting them, I pulled out my phone and called my best friend Eva. The second she answered, I blurted out, "They hid my Columbia acceptance letter." I was crying and furious, and I could barely get the words out. It took a minute for Eva to understand, but when I explained, she was aghast and angry on my behalf. "Who does that to their own kid?" she practically yelled. She offered to come over for support. I almost said yes, but ultimately, I told her I needed to do this alone. I promised to update her later. By the time I hung up, I heard my dad's car pulling into the driveway. It was early evening. I took a deep breath and steeled myself, hovering near the dining table where that damned letter lay in wait. Dad walked in, calling out, "Hey kiddo, I'm home," like it was any other day. As soon as he saw me standing stiffly by the table and the look on my face, his smile faded. "What's wrong?" he asked carefully. I didn't trust myself to speak without screaming, so I just said, "We need to talk. Let's wait for Mom to get back." My voice was tight. I saw his eyes flick down to the table where the Columbia University letterhead was clearly visible. Dad's face went pale. He opened his mouth as if to say something, then closed it. He nodded and sank into a chair, rubbing a hand over his face. The silence in the house was suffocating. Minutes later, Mom's footsteps sounded on the porch. She came in through the front door with a bright smile, carrying a couple of grocery bags. I got Chinese takeout for, she started, then stopped when she saw the two of us. What's going on? She asked, looking from Dad's drawn face to me. Come here, I said, my voice low. I think I was almost eerily calm in that moment, fueled by adrenaline. Mom set the bags down and walked over, clearly sensing something was very wrong. Her eyes fell on the letter on the table. I watched her expression change as she recognized the logo. She picked up the letter with trembling fingers. I couldn't wait any longer. As her eyes darted over the words, I spoke, my voice already shaking with fury and hurt. Why? I demanded. Why would you hide this from me? How could you lie to me about something so important? Mom's eyes filled with tears. She whispered, "Oh my God," under her breath, as she realized exactly what that envelope was. She tried to reach for me, but I stepped back. Dad was hunched in his chair, looking like the weight of the world was on his shoulders. We thought we were doing what was best for you," Mom finally said, her voice breaking. "You were so young, and New York is so far. We were afraid to lose you. We never wanted to hurt you. We only wanted to protect you." Her words, her excuses, only made my anger burn hotter. "Best for me?" I shouted, bitterness dripping from every word. "I busted my butt in high school for that chance. You knew how badly I wanted it. You watched me cry over a rejection that never even happened. How was that protecting me?" Tears were now streaming down Mom's face. Dad looked up, eyes red. "We were scared," he said softly. "You're our only child. We didn't know how to let you go. We thought if you stayed closer to home, maybe it would be safer, easier. We thought we were doing the right thing, but we were wrong. We were so wrong." His voice cracked. "It was the biggest mistake of our lives." I had never seen my father cry before, and seeing tears in his eyes nearly broke something in me. For a moment, I just stood there, taking in the sight of both my parents sobbing, looking more remorseful than I'd ever seen them. A tiny part of me wanted to run to them and comfort them out of sheer habit. But then I remembered the years of lies, the stolen opportunities, and the image of that letter flashed in my mind. My sympathy was eclipsed by a fresh wave of fury. "I can't do this," I said, my voice cold and strangely calm now. "You broke me. You broke my trust. You broke my dreams. How do you expect me to ever forgive this?" I looked at both of them, my eyes blurred with tears I refused to fully spill. "What you did wasn't just a mistake. It was cruel." "Cruel?" Mom whimpered, looking at me with agony. "We never meant to be cruel, honey." "But it was cruel," I snapped. "Maybe you told yourselves you were protecting me, but you know what you really did? You hurt me more than anyone ever has. You took away something I earned, something I worked for, and you did it behind my back. You let me hate myself, think I wasn't good enough, all because you were afraid. That's not love, that's control, and I want no part of it." They were both openly sobbing by then, saying, "Sorry," over and over, reaching out to me, pleading for forgiveness. The sight might have made me waver once, but not now. I was too angry, too hurt. My dad stood up unsteadily, holding out a hand. "I'll do anything," he pleaded. "If you want to apply to Columbia now or to grad school, we'll pay for it. We'll support you. If you want to move to New York, we'll help. Just, please, don't leave like this. Don't cut us off." A hollow laugh escaped my lips. "You still think this is about Columbia or New York?" I asked. "You think you can fix this with money and promises? You can't. I'll pursue my dreams on my own, without you, because I can't trust a single thing you say or do anymore." Mom covered her face with her hands, bawling. Dad looked like I'd slapped him, but I meant every word. I took a shaky breath, wiping the hot tears from my cheeks. "I'm done," I said quietly. "I'm done being lied to and manipulated." "I can't stay here immediately," Mom panicked. Please, don't go, she cried, trying to grab my arm. It's late, sweetie. Just stay and we'll talk through it. We'll fix it, I promise. We're a family. We can get past this. I pulled away from her grasp. If this is how family treats me, maybe I don't need it, I replied, voice steely even as it trembled. I pulled out my phone and quickly texted Eva a single sentence. Can you pick me up? She replied almost instantly that she was on her way. Dad realized what I was doing and came toward me, desperation on his face. Let's talk, please, he urged. Yell at us, punish us, but don't walk out. At least let me drive you wherever you're going. You shouldn't be alone right now. Don't, I warned, holding a hand up. Don't you dare act all concerned about my safety after what you've done. You lost that right. He stopped, his shoulders sagging as fresh tears fell down his face. We can't lose you, he whispered. I couldn't even look at them anymore. I turned and headed for the stairs. I'm packing some things. Don't try to stop me, I said flatly. Up in my room, the room I had grown up in, now utterly tainted by this betrayal, I threw a duffel bag on my bed and started tossing clothes into it. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely zip the bag up. All the while, I could hear my parents outside my door, Mom softly crying, Dad asking me to please come out and talk. I didn't answer. There was nothing left to say. Within a few minutes, I had what I needed. I swung the bag over my shoulder and opened my door. My parents stood there in the hallway, broken and fearful. My mom's face was streaked with mascara, eyes red and pleading. My dad looked as if he'd aged 10 years in the last 10 minutes. Where will you go? Mom asked in a small voice. Please, at least tell us that you'll be safe, please. I paused, meeting their eyes one last time. I'll be with Eva, I said quietly. Don't follow me. Don't call me, I need time. My voice caught, but I steadied it. And frankly, I don't want to see either of you for a very long time. Maybe ever. Mom let out a sob like I'd slapped her. Dad closed his eyes as if absorbing the blow. As I headed downstairs, they trailed after me at a distance. We love you, Dad choked out as I opened the front door. For a second, I stood on the threshold, my back to them. Those words, which had always been comforting, now felt hollow. I didn't respond. I walked out and shut the door behind me. Eva's car was already at the curb. I practically ran to it. The moment I slid into the passenger seat, I finally collapsed. All the adrenaline, the fury that had been keeping me upright, gave way to raw, guttural sobbing. Eva pulled me into a hug as I cried uncontrollably. I could barely get words out, just babbling. They lied. They lied to me. Over and over. She just held me, letting me soak her shirt with tears, telling me softly, I know. I'm so sorry. I'm here. From the corner of my eye, I saw the front door of my house open. My parents stood on the porch, watching with devastated faces as my best friend drove me away. I couldn't bear to look at them. I turned away and shut my eyes, feeling a pain inside me that I can't even describe, like a part of me was torn out, and maybe it was. That night at Eva's apartment, I barely slept. I alternated between crying and just staring blankly at the wall. Eva stayed up with me, making me tea I didn't drink, reassuring me that I wasn't alone and that what my parents did was beyond awful. I felt like I was in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. The people I loved and trusted most had betrayed me in the worst way. It truly felt like the parents I thought I knew had died. The next morning, I woke up feeling hollow and exhausted. My phone was flooded with missed calls and texts from Mom and Dad. There were long messages apologizing, short ones begging me to come home or just let them know I was okay. I skimmed through a few and felt anger rising up again. The messages were full of their sorrow and panic. I saw a lot of, "We can't sleep knowing you're upset," and "Please, we're so sorry, we love you," and so on. It felt like even now they were making it about themselves and their feelings. I decided I wasn't ready to talk to them or reply. I needed space. Over the next week, I stayed at Eva's. She was my rock, listening as I ranted and cried, even sleeping out on the couch with me when I couldn't be alone. A few other close friends came by or called to check on me, all of them as shocked as I was at what my parents had done. Their support meant the world to me. I also confided in my Aunt Linda, my mom's sister, about what happened, and she was furious on my behalf. I think she even called my parents to scold them. I didn't ask for details of that conversation, but she later told me my parents a single text, just to stop them from freaking out completely. I am safe. I need more time. Please respect that. I'll reach out when I'm ready. They both replied immediately that they were glad I was safe and that they would wait as long as it takes. At least they were listening to me on that. In the silence that followed, I had a lot of time to think. Once the initial storm of anger and pain began to settle, I realized something. As horrifying as the betrayal was, it oddly freed something in me. For years, I'd accepted a life that was a shadow of what I really wanted. I went to the college my parents wanted, lived at home, played things safe. I'd always wondered if I just wasn't as good as I hoped, since I didn't get into the dream school I wanted. Now I knew that wasn't true. I did get in. I had what it took all along. The problem wasn't me, it was them. That realization lit a fire inside me. I decided then and there that I was not going to let my parents' terrible decision derail my dreams any more than it already had. Yes, I was 5 years behind where I wanted to be, but it wasn't too late. I started researching graduate programs and career opportunities that I had once brushed off as impossible. Late one night, about 2 weeks after that fateful day, I even wrote an email to Columbia University's admissions office. I explained, in very broad terms, that I had been accepted years ago but couldn't attend due to family circumstances, and I inquired about their graduate programs in my field, journalism. I didn't really expect a reply. I mostly did it to get it off my chest. To my surprise, about a week later, I opened my inbox and saw an email with Columbia University in the subject line. For a second, I thought it had to be spam, some cruel trick of the algorithm. But when I clicked it open, my jaw nearly hit the floor. It was from an actual admissions counselor. Her words were kinder than anything I'd read in months. She explained that she had seen my file, noticed the odd withdrawal from my original application, and, while she couldn't undo what had already happened, she wanted me to know that if I reapplied, my prior acceptance would be taken into account. She said it didn't guarantee admission, but it showed that I had potential. She even encouraged me to consider applying for the graduate cohort the following year. The moment I read that, my throat closed up and the tears came. Not the bitter, angry tears I'd been shedding since leaving home, but happy tears. It had been so long since I'd felt like the universe was giving me even the tiniest break. I reread the email 3 times, clutching my phone like it was a lifeline, because in a way, it was. For the first time since everything blew up, I felt hope blooming again. In the meantime, real life kept moving. I managed to land a better job about an hour away in a neighboring city. Nothing glamorous, but the pay was steadier, and the role aligned more closely with the career I actually wanted. I threw myself into it. I figured if I worked hard and saved, I could finally stop leaning on Eva and her generous family. As much as they loved having me, I didn't want to be a permanent fixture in their spare room. Independence had become my mission. The apartment hunt was stressful. I toured dingy little places with cracked tiles and leaky faucets, landlords who seemed more interested in cash than paperwork. But eventually, I found a small studio on the 3rd floor of an old brick building. It had squeaky floors and thin walls, but when the evening sun came in through the single big window, it bathed the place in a warm glow that made me feel safe. Signing that lease was terrifying and exhilarating all at once. For the first time, I had a set of keys that opened a door that was only mine. All this time, I still hadn't spoken a direct word to my parents. I'm sure they picked up scraps of information from my Aunt Linda. She had always been my safe person on that side of the family. They sent occasional texts. "We love you. Thinking of you." Most of the time, I didn't respond. Sometimes, just to keep them from spiraling into panic, I'd type a flat, "I'm okay." About a month after I left home, Aunt Linda convinced me to agree to a meeting. I think part of me wanted to see if there was any way they could explain themselves, though deep down I knew there was no excuse big enough to patch the hole they'd carved into me. More than that, I wanted to face them on my terms. No screaming, no begging for scraps of validation, just me telling my truth. We agreed to meet at my aunt's house for neutral ground. I told her in advance that I needed her there, not in the middle of every word, but close enough in case things went sideways. I wasn't willing to walk into a lion's den blind again. When I walked into her living room and saw my parents waiting on the couch, I barely recognized them. My dad's hair seemed grayer, his shoulders slumped. My mom's eyes were red-rimmed, and she twisted a tissue in her hands like it was the only thing keeping her together. They both started crying the second they saw me. I didn't move to hug them. I didn't even sit down right away. I stood with my arms crossed, heart pounding, trying to look stronger than I felt. Aunt Linda gently urged me into a chair across from them, and then excused herself to the kitchen, close enough to hear but giving us space. The apologies poured out instantly. My mom sobbed, "We're so sorry, there's no excuse for what we did." My dad's voice cracked as he said, "It was the worst mistake of our lives. We failed you." Over and over they repeated it, like if they said it enough times it would erase what happened. For a fleeting second, I thought they might shift blame onto Emma, say she manipulated them, but no, they owned it. My dad admitted, through tears, that they had always unfairly placed Emma on a pedestal, that they convinced themselves they were helping by focusing resources on her, and that they had told themselves I would find my way regardless. Hearing him say that out loud made my stomach twist. Helping? They called tearing me down helping? I told them everything. I told them about the years of self-doubt, the constant comparisons, the nights I cried alone in my room feeling invisible. I told them how the betrayal crushed me, but also lit a fire under me to finally choose myself. My voice shook, but I didn't hold back. For once, I wasn't silenced. My mom reached for my hand at one point, barely grazing my fingers, and asked, "Is there any way you can forgive us?" I shook my head. "I don't know. Not right now." That sentence broke something in them. My dad wiped his eyes and whispered, "Then we'll spend the rest of our lives trying to earn it." It should have felt satisfying, but instead it left me hollow. I had dreamed of hearing those words, but now that they were here, all I felt was exhaustion. That night, I returned to my little studio and lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering if I was heartless. But then I remembered my therapist's words. Forgiveness is a choice, not an obligation. A few weeks after that meeting, a twist I hadn't expected landed in my lap. Emma herself reached out. Not just a casual, "hope you're okay" text. She sent a long email. In it, she confessed that at the time she sabotaged me, she had been under pressure too. She claimed Mom and Dad had always expected her to be the shining star, the one who carried the family's reputation, and that she lashed out at me because deep down she feared I might outshine her. She admitted she was jealous of my writing, jealous of how teachers loved my essays, jealous that I had passions that came naturally while she felt she was constantly performing. Reading her words, I didn't know what to feel. Was it an apology? Maybe. Was it an excuse? Definitely. Part of me wanted to delete the email and never respond. Another part of me, the part that still ached for a real sibling bond, wanted to believe her. I didn't reply. Not yet. I tucked the message away like a splinter under my skin, waiting to see if time would push it out or bury it deeper. Meanwhile, life kept moving. I started therapy seriously, every week without fail. My therapist guided me through the tangled mess of love and anger, helping me see that letting go of rage didn't mean welcoming my parents back with open arms. It just meant not letting them rent space in my head for free anymore. Work at my new job kept me busy, and for the first time, I was thriving on my own terms. I decorated my tiny apartment with thrift store finds, cooked meals in a kitchen barely big enough for one, and smiled every time I came home to silence that belonged only to me. My parents kept their word about boundaries. They sent small supportive texts. Good luck on your first day. Happy birthday. Nothing pushy, nothing demanding. I responded politely but never warmly. That was the line I wasn't ready to cross. Sometimes, though, late at night, I thought about that day at Aunt Linda's, about the way my mom's hand trembled when she reached for mine, about how my dad's voice broke when he said they'd spend their lives trying to earn forgiveness. And I wondered, was there a future where I could believe them? Was there a version of me that could trust again? I don't know, maybe, but not now. For now, I'm focused on healing, on my career, on the possibility of grad school. I'm letting go of anger because I refuse to let it poison me forever. But letting go doesn't mean letting them back in. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Do I still love my parents? In some buried corner of my heart, yes. But trust, once shattered, doesn't grow back overnight. They made their choice, and I've made mine. Some people say I'm too harsh. Others say I'm not harsh enough. But here's what I know. Walking away wasn't about punishing them. It was about saving myself. Sometimes you have to leave the people you love, not to hurt them, but because they hurt you. And maybe one day, when enough time has passed and enough proof has been shown, we'll build something fragile but new. But it will never be the same. That innocent trust I had as a daughter, that's gone. Still, for the first time in years, when I look ahead, I see possibility instead of despair. My parents' betrayal was their choice. Cutting them out was mine, and I'll carry that resolve with me wherever I go next.